Welcome back to the Energetics Podcast. I am your host, Kara Bunde-Dunn, and today we're joined by Brianne Roberge. She's a trauma specialist, a somatic practitioner, and the dynamic voice behind her very own podcast, Go Regulate Yourself. Brianne's journey from nursing to holistic coaching has empowered countless women to reconnect with their bodies, process deep-seated emotions, and reclaim their personal power. Through her unique blend of brain rewiring, identity embodiment, and somatic processing, she guides individuals towards a life that's not just fulfilling, but also vibrantly magnetic. So, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Thank you. Okay, so we're in this really fun mastermind together. That's how we met each other.
Yes.
And we just clicked, and I was like, I got to have you on the pod. You got to come. So I'm super glad you're here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I feel that our energies are very aligned, and I'm sure we're going to get into some great conversation today.
100%. And I live in Nebraska now, but I'm from Minnesota. So I like to say I'm a Canada light. You know, I'm like almost a Canadian. So.
I like that. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of states that match with our provinces. And we're almost like neighbors in a sense. So.
That's right. Okay, so you had a very similar journey to me where you started in one career and then moved over into a different career of entrepreneurship. But you were a nurse first. So can you walk me through like those pivotal moments that led you to move from being a nurse to what you're doing now, or maybe even some of the steps in between?
Absolutely. My journey for the last few years has been a little bit of a wild one, so I will do my best to condense this story as I can. But I actually began my own healing journey, which is in reference to this story, about 12 years ago. And at the time, I was in the middle of my nursing degree and going down a path that at the time I thought was the direction I was supposed to head. But now looking back, realize that I was kind of pressured or coerced into a direction that wasn't necessarily in true alignment with my heart and my soul. And so at the time, I started to think about different pieces of my healing journey in relation to helping other women get through what they were going through. And a lot of health issues started to arise for me about 12 years ago, which is directly in relation to a lot of the trauma that I faced in my childhood. And I correlated that with my nursing career. And I started to think, okay, if I can overcome these health conditions, these health problems through different regulation tactics and different health tactics, then other women are going to be able to heal their bodies and heal their lives as well. And so I will facilitate that. And alongside of my nursing, I was working at the time as a bedside nurse in the hospital. So, directly in acute care, a lot of long hours, shift work, kind of all over the place in terms of my schedule. I decided that I was going to start this side hustle on the side and start coaching people in the world of health and life. And that about 8 years ago really started to take off, and I started to realize that there was such a need for somebody within this space. And although the core foundation of my journey has always been around trauma healing, I really kind of latched onto this career that I had in nursing as being the thing that I was supposed to teach. And I didn't really understand at the time how those two were correlated or what I would uncover throughout that journey, but it led me to, about 8 years ago, creating a holistic healthcare company where I was taking individuals who weren't necessarily getting the results that they desired in Western medicine and helping them find a more natural, holistic route to improving their health. This continued on up until about 2 years ago, where I got this beautiful idea to start this massive on-the-ground company here in Alberta. And I was going to bring on other nurses. We're going to open all these clinic locations. We were really going to create this one-stop shop for individuals seeking that holistic and natural outlook.
Yeah.
But what I didn't really pay attention to throughout my journey of coaching, because at the time I was doing one-to-one, I was doing group coachings, I was doing events and all kinds of things, I didn't really pay attention to the fact that even though I was bringing people in for health care, like they were coming in looking for improvements in their physical health, all of my programs, all of my offerings actually went backwards to trauma work without me even realizing it or that being the true focus of what I was wanting to deliver. They just kind of automatically ended up there. And so I wasn't necessarily putting these correlations together when I decided to create this big on the ground business. Now, another side note in this whole process is that my husband and I are actually what you would call minimalists or digital nomads. We sold our house.
That phrase, digital nomads.
Thank you.
I was like, oh, we're digging into that.
Oh yeah, for sure. So we actually sold our house and everything back in 2021. Literally only own a suitcase of belongings each. And we spend 6 months of the year throughout the winter months, because who likes snow, to travel and get away. And normally we're in Central America, but we've done Asia before. We've went to Nicaragua several times, which has been one of our core places. And it's part of our lifestyle to not be locked into anything, to have that freedom and flexibility. So when I started really taking this deep dive with the expansion 2 years ago, I wasn't.
It's not like the other.
Exactly. It wasn't lining up. And you know that saying, when we're out of alignment with our body, we're out of alignment with our true passion or the purpose that we're supposed to go, we get thrown a pebble from the universe. And when we don't pay attention to that pebble, we get thrown a rock. And when we don't pay attention to that, we get thrown a bigger rock. And eventually it ends up being a boulder that we just can't ignore. And it feels at that time like everything in our life is crumbling. Well, this is precisely what happened with the building of that company that I had. We started having one problem after another, which ended up ultimately leading to the complete destruction of the company, the closure of the company, the loss of 4 clinics, and financial disdain for me and my husband. And it was throughout this process where I actually entered my deepest, darkest night of the soul. I was the most depressed.
Right? If you think about it, you had brick and mortar locations, you're green and growing, maybe with more effort than you wanted to, but like growing. And then you're like, oh my God, what do we do? This is what I thought I was supposed to be doing. Now what? And so I think it's pretty normal to like hit a rock bottom after you close up your businesses and go, now what?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So what was honestly that like for you?
It was something unlike anything that I've ever experienced before in my life. And this is coming from somebody who has an immense history of childhood trauma and trauma throughout my life, that has spent such a predominant amount of my time healing and working on nervous system regulation and coming back into alignment. This pivotal depths, the crevice of what I hit with that dark night of the soul, was unlike anything that I've ever experienced before. I was my most sickest, my most depressed, my most stressed. Literally waking up when the company was still, when I was trying to keep things going in that first, we'll say 6 to 12 months of ignoring the problem, ignoring the rocks and trying to make it go. I was getting up first thing in the morning at the crack of dawn, waking up with such a heaviness and feeling of dread for the day ahead of me, hopping on 16 hours of calls straight with no breaks, no rest periods, not taking care of myself, and ultimately closing up my laptop and finally shutting down work at about 11 p.m. or midnight every single day. And I would enter sleep with these feelings of stress and anxiety, tossing and turning, insomnia. My hair was falling out, my body was inflamed, my skin literally changed, my face changed shape with how much stress I was going through at the time. Yeah. And so during this period, I didn't really realize how far out of alignment I was, because I had stopped listening and communicating with my intuition and my inner voice. Yeah. It's like I put blinders on.
Do you think... I'm just out of curiosity, do you feel like, just from my own comparison of my own life, that you were like, the ego took over, like, go, figure it out, do, like,
yes.
And then when that gets really loud, it's sometimes hard to hear your inner voice.
Absolutely it is. And as you know, the ego is simply there to protect us. It wants to keep us safe, and it wants us to keep doing things as we would normally do. So my ego absolutely took over. And when that voice gets in, it's loud, it's proud, it's in your face. It says all of these things to such a high level that it's really hard to ignore. And I felt that my confidence, my self-esteem, everything had gotten so low that it was very easy to be overtaken. And as I sit here now, 2 years later, on the other side of the fence looking back, I can clearly see that everything that happened for me. It was the
Totally.
design of almost like a repeat of my childhood experiences, an opportunity for everything that I had placed my worth and my value in externally to be ripped away from me so that I could find that value and that worth within me
Yeah.
instead. And it was
Yeah.
a beautiful closure, a beautiful understanding of what that purpose was serving.
Yeah.
But it also caused me to take a really hard look at my life and understand what had I chosen because I had chosen it, and what had I chosen based on that pressure, that manipulation, that control of
Yeah.
things outside of me. And nursing ultimately ended up being one of those things. I realized that nursing was a career that I had went into never by my own choice. I never wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to be a writer. I had
Oh.
published a couple of poems. I had wrote like a choose your own ending short story book. I was doing all kinds of newsletters and things. And I had always wanted to be a writer and get into that space of creativity and allowing that content to come through. And nursing was something that I was very much pressured and forced into in my family dynamics. And so I actually made the choice in the midst of all of this destruction to not just walk away from my company, but walk away from my nursing license as well. And so then I was faced with
Yeah.
that hard decision. What is in alignment with me moving forward?
Yeah.
So I had to.
I think it's so relatable though to be like so many of my listeners are people that are in the business world or in, in healthcare, teachers, business leaders, and they're grinding and they're going and they're going. And I think it's so relatable what you went through, that the ego's voice is so loud. And I think the word you said was it's very proud. And I don't know
Mhm.
if I've had somebody say that in that way before, because it was very like so accurate, right? It's like, you can do this. You got this. Figure this out. Go make it happen. Like all that self talk that we think is super positive is oftentimes our ego telling us to push through and not listen to our intuition. So how do you reconcile that? Like the loud and proud voice against the whisper? Like how have you learned to navigate that, to own confidence and be bold in who you are, but still be able to listen to the whisper? I think that's what we're all trying to figure out, probably.
Absolutely. And I'm still trying to figure it out. So I'll give you the wisdom
Same,
that I
same.
have right now. But uh, I think one of the things that most of us are struggling with when we find ourselves in this place of trying to differentiate between those two concepts is not getting wrapped up in that loud voice. We often accept what is being said as the absolute truth and
Mm-hmm.
not recognize that what our ego is feeding us is being fed to the ego from our subconscious mind. And that is a collection of everything that we have ever experienced in
Yeah.
our life, from our childhood experiences, if you believe in past lives, generational lives, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. Everything is currently housed within your subconscious mind,
Yes.
and it's breeding what your ego is saying. And so differentiating between the ego and that whisper, that loud voice and that quiet voice, the biggest thing to note is that when we are following the intuition, it is neutral in its tone. There is
Mm.
no emotion tied to what our higher self or intuitive voice is telling us. The ego is very emotional and very erratic in its responses. And so, we all have those moments when we're staring in the bathroom mirror, or we are, putting on a bathing suit, or we are trying to do this really hard work project that we just can't seem to focus on or figure out, or we're having a disagreement with our spouse, and that ego pipes up and it starts to give us all of this false evidence from our childhood or our experiences, where it wants to tell us why we can't, why we shouldn't, why we're not good enough, why it's
Mm-hmm.
unsafe to do it. But when it's communicating those things, it's a scream, it's an emotional
Yes.
pull.
Yes.
Versus if we are trying to be told something from our intuition, like say we are in a disagreement with our spouse, our ego's voice is going to be like, well, you shouldn't have said that. You fucked this up. That person's never going to love you, right? I hope it's okay that I say that on your podcast.
100%. I have a spirituality podcast with an E next to it on purpose. So you go. Get down with the
Perfect.
bad stuff.
Excellent. So if we're in that voice or in that space, and our ego is communicating to us from that perspective, it's going to be very emotional, telling us all these reasons why we can't. Versus if our intuition is trying to tell us that we shouldn't be with this person and we're down, the same pattern and the same disagreement we found ourselves in once again, that voice is going to be quiet and soft and neutral. And it's going to go, hey, Brianne, maybe this isn't the best for you. Maybe we should look at this from a different angle.
Yeah.
And that's precisely what happened with
Yeah.
this crumble of my old company. The ego voice was like, oh my God, we have to hold on to all of this. This whole thing is burning down in front of us. What are people going to think? What are they going to say? Look at all the judgment you're getting online and all the hate and criticism. You have to try to find a way to salvage this. Versus my intuition was like, I don't think this is for us. I don't think this has ever been for us. And I think it's time that we let it go.
Yeah,
and
totally.
That was the scariest part. We often think of the ego voice as being the scariest, but it's actually listening to, accepting, and tapping into the intuitive voice.
It takes so much more courage to listen to the whisper. And it's so true what you said, because I get downloads from my guides all of the time. And for the words that they use to me are things like, you may want to. Kara, you may want to consider this. You may want to open up in this way. You may want to find space for forgiveness. You may want to. And it really is like a loving, kind nudge of encouragement, but no, it isn't forced. It is a consideration for me to still choose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing, is the choice, right? When the ego voice comes through, it doesn't feel like there's a choice, because it certainly didn't feel like there was a choice in the last company. It was like I had to or else.
Yes.
And that did bring up so much fear, because choosing to follow the intuition and choosing to shut everything down and walk away meant that I had to face my fear of conflict, my fear of being judged, my fear of not being liked, misunderstood. The list goes on and on.
100%.
And that was part of that dark night of the soul too, was uncovering and moving through each of those fears individually and learning how to rewrite so many of those stories and patterns from what I had learned growing up in my childhood.
Yeah, 100%. This is kind of a tangent story, but I watched on, I think it's Hulu, they have the Theranos story of the lady who founded Theranos. And you can see through every episode that she is literally like getting all the hits that it like redirect. Like, you are so far down a path of lying and all the things, like, and I'm just watching it from like a spiritual lens. And I was like, oh my God, stop, just stop. You can stop at any time. And you can like start again, and you can like, you can do this, you know. And it's like she missed all the boulders and wound up in jail, you know. So it can be so extreme if we don't listen to those signs that tell us we're on the wrong path, or that I will say this, I don't like to think of it as a right or wrong path. I like to think of it as, are we on the path for our is that the highest timeline available to us for our highest and best good? And that really anchors for me, like, you have choice in everything that you do, but there are pathways that are for your highest vibration, that are more in alignment with your higher self. And your life will be more fulfilling when you're on those pathways. Now, it doesn't mean your life will be perfect. You'll still have lots of challenges, but it won't be like boulders. It will be like somebody threw a rock at your face and you're like, okay, I got to work through this thing, you know?
Absolutely.
At least that's what I have found. I'm wondering if that's true for you too. Like, now that you've made this shift, do you feel like the challenges feel more like a rock or a pebble versus like a boulder in your path? Or have you noticed how you navigate challenges now, being more in tune with your higher self and your intuition?
I would say yes, for a large part, that the challenges have changed. I think a big thing that a lot of individuals, especially when they're in a healing journey, we often correlate the idea of being healed or being completely and totally tapped into our intuition as, well, life challenges are no longer going to happen. I'm going to have this beautiful clean slate, rainbows and, glitter, and everything is just going to look fine and dandy moving forward. And the unfortunate part is that challenges in life are inevitable. Life is unpredictable and it is totally uncertain, which is a large part of why our ego does not like change, is because everything changes with life. And when we allow ourselves to understand it from this perspective, that challenges are always going to happen, we instead stop looking for safety outside of ourselves and we look to create safety within ourselves instead. So no matter what those circumstances look like, no matter what's going on around you, the people that you're surrounded with, the environment that you're surrounded with, if you have that sense of safety within yourself, you're going to be okay no matter what those challenges are. And that's a big difference between where I was with that old company versus where I am now, is in the the old company, I was looking for the safety outside of me, and now I have the safety within me. And so those challenges that are coming through, they do feel smaller or more manageable, or that they're happening less often, but it's only because I have the tools now to consistently move through those experiences without them totally destroying myself or where I'm at. Does that make sense?
100% it does. So this is, I assume, a bit of what you teach, this inner peace concept, the safety within you, in your group coaching programs. What types of things can people do to bring that safety within them or that inner peace within them? What are some things that work to reprogram your subconscious or work through some of that healing process? What are some of the things that you like to teach or use for tools?
Thank you. I love this question. I have three main pillars or foundations of what my offerings, my coaching, my practices lean off of. The first is somatic processing, which is basically getting in touch with your body. The second is our brain rewiring, so the ability to reprogram our subconscious mind for our success and benefit. And the third is identity embodiment, so actually choosing who we want to show up as and stepping into her shoes on a daily, consistent basis. So when we're talking about kind of the first step in healing, the first step in healing is always cultivating awareness. So one of the best things that people can do is grab a notebook and a pen and keep it with you all the time and start to write down everything that you notice. In the beginning, it might be really difficult for you to acknowledge what are some of these patterns or the thoughts that I'm having or what's showing up in my reality. But the more consistently that you do it, the more you're going to be able to open your eyes to where you're currently at and what you don't like that's happening and where you can potentially make some changes. So that would definitely be the first option that I would say, first place to start.
Yeah, isn't that true too? It's like you have to tell yourself the truth, and you have to process that, and you have to know what it is before you can do something with it, you know? And I do think
Exactly.
that's really hard for people. They're
It
like, oh
is.
no, I'm really good at ignoring it. Have you ever met me? I just push it down and I do all my life's things and I figure I'll take that on another day, you know? So I do, same for me. When people are opening up spiritually, that's the first step too. It's like you have to release what doesn't serve you. And for you to release it, you have to acknowledge that it's there.
Yes, I
Yeah,
couldn't
so
agree
it's
more.
very similar. Okay, so then step 2 is you do like the brain rewiring.
Well, step two is actually moving into the body.
Okay,
So
okay.
the
Oh yeah.
first thing. So I teach in a lot of my programs, in the retreats that I offer, or in my group programs. I teach a concept called the cycle of trauma, which basically means from the moment that we go through these experiences, how do things become pocketed inside of the body, leading to a trigger and a repeat of those cycles throughout the rest of our lives. And so the very first thing that happens when you experience a trauma is you have an emotion tied to that experience. Now, that emotion, good or bad, same thing, I really don't like those terminologies, but lower vibration or higher
Sure,
vibration.
yes.
When we experience those things, if we are not properly going into them, which means that we are, first of all, understanding that they are there, we have the awareness that they are present, but then actually expressing them in a healthy way, doing something to process them and release them from the body, they actually become pocketed inside. So when we begin a healing journey, when we begin the self-discovery, we're walking around with so much energetic clogging of the pipe that we need to be able to release first and foremost. So getting in touch with your body is one of the best things that you can do. And I don't care what this looks like. For some people, it can be going outside and walking. For some people, it can be, just giving yourself a hug and making that connection to yourself.
Yeah.
It could be regulation tools. I personally love activities like shaking, rocking, and dancing because they help me get out of my head, drop into my heart and into my body, and release massive amounts of emotions, massive amounts of energy in a very short period of time. So anything somebody can do to tap into that emotional profile, start to get comfortable experiencing those emotions and helping to move through them and release them, is a very powerful step that can take you very far in that healing journey.
Is that why? So I've had a therapist tell me, like, when your child is going through like big emotions, like cannot regulate themselves, that is not the time to reason with them and rationalize with them, because they're literally like raging right now. But I did have a therapist tell me, like, hug them, just hug them and hold them and allow them to feel your safe energy in their body. Is that kind of why that works? Because you're you're helping them tune into their body by regulating to your body. I'm just curious. That just came to me. I wonder if
Yes.
that's why that works.
Yes. Absolutely, it works for that way. Not only are they picking up on that energetic component and feeling the safety of your body, but they're also in a very early stage of just starting to learn how to navigate their emotions and
Yeah.
understand what's coming up for them. And unfortunately, in the conditioning of our society, we have taught our generations to stifle the emotions in the
That's
young.
right.
And so we often get mad at kids for having tantrums and try to stop those emotional outbursts, when in reality, we should be trying to help provide tools and ways of regulating their bodies from a really young age. And that's not our fault or the fault of anybody, but more so us understanding that by getting in touch with our bodies and starting to learn how to regulate ourselves, we're also passing that down to our children and the generations after, of learning to navigate that from a really early age. So it absolutely does work for that reason.
I just literally hold my daughter. She's 10, almost 11, and she most of the time is great, but sometimes she's got
Yeah,
she's a little intuitive, so she's got big emotions. But I will
absolutely.
just like hold her, and I'll just like those really, really, really deep breaths just to get her to try to like regulate her nervous system a little bit, like, and then usually the next day or later in the day, we process what actually caused the big feelings. But early on in my parenting, I'd be like, stop, stop kicking the door.
Absolutely.
That
And
didn't
you're not
work.
alone.
Didn't
You're
work.
not alone.
No.
Yeah. How many times, I know, like growing up, how many times I heard, like, stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about,
Oh
right?
yeah,
That type
100%.
of response. So, I mean, we're heavily conditioned to be out of touch with our emotions. I know a huge thing from my childhood growing up was put up and shut up was a big thing of my family dynamic. So put up with what's happening and don't you say a word. Don't show how you're feeling. Don't express your emotions, hide everything. And so it took me a really long time to start getting comfortable getting in touch with my emotions. And it's not easy in the beginning, but just providing yourself that safety and that space to do so is so fun. And there's so many ways that you can move emotions in ways that don't need to be, if something feels just overwhelming or uncomfortable for a person, like anger is a great example. One of my favorite tools to process anger is to actually take ice cubes out onto the cement or concrete and throw them down on the ground as hard as I can when I'm angry, because it smashes the ice cube, it breaks it apart, I move the energy, but you're not breaking anything.
Yeah, there's no glitter plates flying around the room.
Exactly. So there's some really awesome ways you can process emotions that don't have to be, too fluffy for the people that are uncomfortable within that space.
And I also think too, like being a spiritual medium, there's also this perception that like just go straight to love and light. Go to love and light, forgive it, let it go to a higher place. And though that is true, I have found personally, if I don't process the big emotion of something I'm going through, especially if it's a relational challenge with a friend or family member or whatever it might be, then I literally just like bury it, because I feel like I'm supposed to be in this woo love and light space where that shouldn't bother me, and then that's, to me, like my spiritual ego needs to get in check, because it's like, well, it did bother you, so now process it and do something with it. And I think when we don't process anger, frustration, fear, doubts, shame, all of those lower vibrational emotions, then you can't really truly get to the highest vibrational state available, because it's still stored within you. It sounds like that's kind of where you're at.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with this. What you resist persists. And so when we're talking about, my favorite is to think of like Abraham Hicks when she says, get into the vortex, get into the vortex. So thinking of that, good feeling, that high flying disc that we want to achieve within this world of spirituality, it has been a lot of that programming, that influence of those within that space to think that it's all love and light.
Yeah.
But the only way for us to get, as you just said, to that love and light is moving through those emotions.
Totally.
Not around them, not over them, not under them, but through them. And that's where a lot of people miss the mark, is they think that they have to stuff it down, ignore it, sweep it under a rug.
Totally.
But eventually, if you keep sweeping all that dust underneath a rug, what's going to happen? You're going to see a giant mound, and eventually it's going to spill out, and the way it spills out is not going to be the healthy expression that you would like to be able to offer.
No, it's going to be like a full-on dust bowl dust storm.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not
Which
going to
nobody
like it.
wants.
And the people around you probably are not also going to like it either.
Absolutely. I mean, I can recall like early on in my healing journey, we're talking, 10, 12 years ago when I first started this work, when I got together with my now husband, I really struggled with like a short temper, a short fuse, and becoming very snappy in my energy. And so if something happened in my day at the hospital, I would carry that home with me. And then the moment that I walked through the door and he asked how my day was, my top would blow off and I would lose it. And it's like, well, it wasn't you that caused the problem. My day was what contributed to the way that I was feeling. But the first moment that I feel safe to let those emotions out comes out in a very unhealthy way. And so I really had to work with myself to find that healthy expression and the ways of getting that out so that no longer happened, or at least not as often or as big as it used to.
Totally. That's so accurate. Same. Like I'm very much like a zingy passive aggressive, give you a zip when I'm having a bad day. And I'm like, you don't deserve that. You really don't. Or like I think they're supposed to be able to read my mind and then they don't. And then I'm like, what's wrong with you? How do you not know that I need a good data girl? You got this. Like, how do you not read my mind?
Oh yeah, or that I haven't eaten in 6 hours. How do you not know that?
Or that the full moon is wreaking havoc on me. Yeah.
Yes. Speaking of full moons, this last one was a doozy.
Oh my God, me too. Me too. Like I told my husband, I was like, look, I'm sorry. Like I have been a little edgy and I don't know if it's my energy link with another like spiritual gifted teacher who I work with a lot. I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's the full moon. I don't know what it is. I think it's a little bit of all the things, but I am sorry. I am not my normal cheerful self because I was like cranky. I was like,
Oh yeah.
I'm not making 3 dinners. Like, like no one wanted the same thing. And I don't know. I just kind of got crabby.
I feel that definitely came through in my expression as well, especially since it was the beginning of my launch. I was having tech issues, all kinds of things are coming up, and I was like, universe, we need to have a talk.
Quit testing me today.
Yeah, exactly.
I would much rather you test me in a week after my launch. Thank you.
Right? If only we could have that defined time.
I know, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Okay, will you like, and then when you talk about like embodying her is kind of how I took that, like really that embodiment of your identity and taking on that identity. Can you anchor in that a little bit too?
Absolutely. So when we think of the future us, the highest self version of us, the best version of us that we want to become, it's important to note that we are always the best version of us. We are always doing the best that we can with all of the tools that we have available, all of the knowledge that we have available. And so when you look back at your past versions and you see, mistakes that you made, decisions you wish you made a different choice in, or different life paths you wish you went down, you are always the best version of you. But that best version of you keeps growing and keeps expanding as you move forward. You gain more knowledge, you gain more wisdom, you gain more tools. And so the idea of identity embodiment is thinking not necessarily about becoming the best version of you, but how can we be the best at being you? How can we be the best you possible right now? And so it's thinking about, okay, well, who am I actually, and what do I want to achieve in my life? What do I actually want? A really large percentage of us are walking around wearing masks and showing up in our lives of how other people have told us to do or how we have been expected to. Yeah. And so we have to strip those layers back and pull those masks off and decide who it is that we are at the core. I mean, if I was to ask you, like, who are you? You might tell me, well, this is my name and this is what I do. But those are labels. Those are things that have been applied to you within this life. Those aren't actually who you are. And so what we have to figure out is what makes you you. And so a big thing that I like to show people is like when we're working towards goals, and goal setting is such a big thing for so many people. These are the goals that I have and the time frame that I want to get them done. And we talk about SMART goals and all of this great stuff. Yeah.
Oh my God. Every corner on my wallet in my business world, SMART goals. Yeah.
100%. So when we think about those things, we have to understand that a large percentage of us are looking at this from an environment and a behavior focus only. So we're looking at what are the things that I can do differently and how can I change my environment to support those goals that I'm working towards. But this is actually backwards towards us being successful because we need to think about it from the perspective of our identity.
Yes,
so
100%.
Who is the version of me that achieved those things? Who's the version of me that has already accomplished all of these things that I want to do? And how can I show up as her today? And so when we start thinking about it from that perspective, one of my favorite questions to ask for this is, what would a blank person do? And in that blank, you put whatever it is that you are working towards. What would a healthy person do? What would a healed person do? What would a financially abundant person do? You can apply it towards any goal.
Yeah.
And so then you start using this question in your day-to-day to step into those metaphorical shoes of that identity that you're hoping to achieve. So if you're placed with a decision and you have to decide between this and this, well, what would a blank person do? And then you tap into it. If I was the person that already achieved this, what decision would I make? How would I go about the situation? And so that is a large percentage of what stepping into the identity means. And then it's that conscious choice to do those things every single day moving forward. And it's important to note, I mean, we're not talking about checking 50 boxes a day. Okay, if you want to be somebody that, has gotten healthy, lost weight, or saved up this money in your savings or whatever it might be, we're not talking that you have to check all of these metaphorical lists every single day. We're talking about the embodiment of the energy in which you care for yourself in that space.
That's exactly right.
Talking about building this new company in the direction that I have now headed, I realized how out of alignment I was with that last company, never taking breaks, never resting, working 16-hour days, really out of my body, not connected to myself at all within. And now in this new place, I know that the person that I want to be, the life I want to create, the business that I want to create, I want it to be soul-centered. I want it to be filled with freedom and peace and love and connection and all of these great things. I connect into that every single day.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, it looked like, okay, what does this person look like? What does this person do? Well, this person takes breaks. This person takes days off. They rest. They get enough sleep every night. They nourish their body. They drink water. They do these things to care for themselves.
Totally.
And so that was tapping into that experience. It's not necessarily going to be, check these boxes and run these big tasks and do all these things. Sometimes it's just sleeping.
I know, it's so funny. Like, we were right before we hit record, we were talking about this, like, identity embodiment as it relates to being entrepreneurs,
Yes.
And I was sharing with you, like, I started my entrepreneurial journey, like, working a lot of nights and, doing readings for people and doing all this stuff in the evening hours to relate to their schedules. And then I was like, I left the corporate world for time freedom. And here I am, a slave to my clock and my calendar and my evening schedule again. And I'm not very present for my daughter. Like, she's like, Mom, like, how long do I have to be quiet for? I'm like, like 2.5 hours, kid. You gotta, read a book, do something. Like, you're not allowed. The mic is gonna be on, so you can't. Don't let your friends ring the doorbell. Don't, you know what I mean? All this stuff. And I was like, okay, I do not want to embody the entrepreneur that I want to be when I get there. And that day when it hit me, and I don't know if that's true for you, but that day when it hit me that I was not embodying the identity that I desired, I literally just changed and said, okay, new Kara, new day. Tomorrow's a new day. We're starting with a different schedule. We're no longer opening our calendar to these things. We're going to open it to when you want to build your business. And I'm curious, how do you help people like get into that identity embodiment? Because it can feel like a lot. You mean I can't ever have a piece of candy because an unhealthy person wouldn't eat a piece of candy? What are you saying to me? Like, I think people go to the extremes of like, how do I embody that? Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. And that is so common, right? I think of it like a pendulum swing. When we are so far out of alignment with one identity, we're on that far side of the extreme. And so when we think about going to the identity of who we want to become, we swing. Uh-oh. Can you still hear me? Okay.
Yeah, it said it'll continue on a new track.
Okay.
Oh, it might be your headphone.
Okay. I don't think I can change it now. I bumped the thing.
Hold on, let's see.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Hold on, talk again.
Oh, I think it switched over now. I think it's back to the mic.
Is it back? Okay, hold on.
It shows Yeti on my end.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, great.
Okay, I'll start over with that. You're going to know you're going to have
It does sound a little different.
Oh.
Hold on. You're fine.
Okay.
Does it say Yeti mic?
It does on my end, so I'm hoping it's clear.
Yeah. Yep. We're good. We're going to rock it.
Okay. Okay. Hopefully it's not going to be too much editing.
No, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So when we think of a pendulum swing, we think about our emotions and where we're currently at, our current identity that we have being on the far extreme of this is totally out of alignment. I don't want to be here anymore. So then we swing all the way over to the other side. And this becomes an extreme of, well, I got to do things perfectly and check every box and cross every T and dot every I and just make sure that I am absolutely on point with this new future that I want to create. And this creates a type of dysregulation for us once again, because now we are out of alignment once more. So the goal is actually not to swing to the extreme, but to actually find ourselves in that neutrality zone in the middle and understanding what it actually means to be in alignment with a healthy image of us. So if I was to ask anybody on the street or anybody listening to this podcast, what do you see as being a healthy person? Do you see a healthy person as never allowing themselves to ever have a piece of cake or a sweet candy and living in total restriction on that side of the fence? Because that's not my definition of what a healthy person is.
Right.
My definition of healthy is being able to ebb and flow, being able to choose what feels in alignment in every moment and have a cupcake if I want a cupcake, or eat that delicious, nourishing bowl full of veggies and protein when it feels in alignment to do so. And just allowing myself to be very nurturing to myself and my body. That's what I view healthy as. So it's the same thing when it comes to any goal that we have. How do you view yourself having this beautiful business, these beautiful finances, this healed perception of yourself? What does that actually look like? And really fine-tuning that process. Because again, using my company and the crumble of everything that I experienced in my life, when I was living that way, I didn't think, oh, geez, I want to never work a day in my life and get, I don't know, millions of dollars and never have to do anything again. That was not my ideal of a dream life. My idea of a dream life and a dream business was being able to do things that felt good to me and lit up my energy and felt totally in alignment, right? Having the space and freedom to be creative and do content like this and design my schedule in a way that I didn't have to wake up to an alarm. There was a lot of things that were very specific in terms of what I was thinking about. But a great quote for anybody who's listening to this to hold on to is, how you get there is how you are there. So we often think,
say it again, because it's so good.
How we get there is how we are there. 100%. So if you are somebody who is trying to heal your body or get healthy or create financial abundance for yourself, and you're working really hard on these goals, if you are hustling and grinding and working in restriction and limitation and all of these things on your way to that goal, in the pursuit of that goal, when you get to that goal, if you get to that goal, because in a large percentage of time we don't actually reach the goal, but if you get to that goal and that energy, what do you think is going to be required for you to maintain that goal once you are there?
Nobody thinks about that. No, they're just like, I just am like all or nothing. I'm in or I'm out. Like, I think I lived my first 40 years of my life like that. It was like, I'm going to work so hard until I literally have to sleep all day on a Saturday to recover because I'm so exhausted from working 80, 90 hours, being on an airplane, traveling all the time. I'm going to diet like crazy, calorie restrict, lose weight. And then I'm going to be like, this sucks. All I want to do is eat a piece of sourdough toast with butter. So go screw yourself. I'm going to eat the whole loaf. Yes, let's go. So it's like, if you are somebody that's going like, oh, I kind of am an all or nothing kind of person, I do kind of go all in or all out, then that's a really good sign that that you may want to consider what it looks like to maintain a life in that way and to live in that neutrality. I think that's so powerful.
Yeah. And to also know that you're not alone. We all have or are struggling with this in some form or another. Like my last company, I can't tell you how many times I said, I can't stop stirring the pot or the pot stops stirring. Well, that was a clear sign that I was out of alignment. Things weren't working, but I didn't realize it until afterwards. And we often don't until we're on the other side of the fence. So anything that you can do to start cultivating awareness within this space and recognizing where you are out of alignment and what you can do to bring it back in is going to be the key.
Totally. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about, before I go into like my rapid fire favorite things, I freaking love that you moved abroad, that you have this, like, I don't remember what you call it, but like this nomadic, like digital nomadic life where you can do your job from anywhere. I freaking love this because my heart is really in cultures and people and traveling, and it makes
Mhm.
my heart so happy. So, what made you all just roll up your sleeves and say, like, we're doing it? We're selling our house. It's post COVID, right? It was 2021, like post COVID, like, what are we waiting for? Like, let's go. Like,
Yeah.
tell me.
So COVID was actually a huge driving force for that for many different reasons. On one side of the fence, we actually left Canada in 2021, 4 days before they
Before
closed
the shutdown?
Canada for
Oh
flying.
my gosh.
And we knew it was coming because they had previously announced the date like months before. And we had been talking about selling the house. At this time, we had a food truck. My husband, we had retired him. He worked coal-fired power plants for 17 years. We had retired him and we were doing our food truck in the springs till fall. And so we had been talking about the idea of selling the house and starting to do these winters away and really getting out of Canada, especially with the instances of everything that was occurring.
Yeah.
And when they made the date that, hey, we're shutting down flying and nobody's going to be able to fly in or out of Canada as of this date, we looked at each other and we went, nope, like
Let's
we're
go.
getting out. And so we put up our house on the market. We started selling off every single thing that we owned, getting ready to leave. And our house sold 2 days before we left. And we ended up bringing his oldest son with us actually when we left. And we took everything that we owned because we thought that we were leaving Canada for good and we didn't think that we were going to be coming back. And so we flew to Nicaragua and we landed there and we spent 6 months there for our first duration. And by the end of that 6 months, which was totally free the entire time, which was incredible, we lived life normally, which was
Everyone else is
amazing.
hiding and hibernating and masking and living in a,
Yeah,
8x8 box with their family. And you're like living your best life on the beaches of Nicaragua.
exactly. It was such a dream. I'm so grateful and blessed that we made that decision to do that. But by the end of that 6 months is when things started to open back up and we ended up coming back to Canada to run our business for another year. And then we started to create this flow where we were home for 6 months in the summer and then leave for 6 months in the winter. But a big thing that we realized outside of like Canada shutting down and things that were occurring was we started to look around at everybody in our life and see how many people were stuck in that hustle and grind of
Mm-hmm.
working their entire lives, never seeing anything. Like we know so many people that haven't left Canada, let alone their province or their town in their
Yes.
entire lives.
Right.
And we just didn't want that. So many people say, oh, well, once I retire, then I'll go travel. Once I'll do this, I'll go to that. But tomorrow's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
We have no idea if we're going to make it to retirement. Or most people, retire and then they get sick or injured and then they can't travel and they spend the rest of their life in
Totally.
a wheelchair or
Because
whatever
what
it might be.
how you get there
How
is
you are
how
there.
you are there.
Exactly. So for us, we just didn't want to prescribe to that notion, which is kind of funny and ironic that I ended up going down that rabbit hole with my company and ended up creating that thing on the ground
Yeah.
and, being so locked into a totally lack of freedom type of
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah.
But I think it was honestly the final learning curve for me to understand just how important freedom was to me and
Yeah.
the fact that we literally don't need anything in this lifetime. Like a suitcase of belongings is all we have and all we've had for 4 years. And I have never felt more alive, more
Yeah.
connected, more at peace than I have throughout this journey.
I think that's so incredible. And I would imagine, like, probably at first took a bit to embody potentially,
Oh,
but
yeah.
like how free you feel to not be attached to things.
Absolutely. And I'm definitely not saying that it was easy because it wasn't to let go of the house that we had been in for so long. My husband had that house for 17 years. I was with him there for like 8 years. To let go of that and to sell everything that we had and to also be leaving Canada not knowing if we were ever coming back and saying goodbye to our friends, our family, my grandparents, people that we thought we would never see again. It was not easy. There
Yeah,
was
no
so
kidding.
much grief and pain and destruction along that path, but at the same time, it was incredibly freeing.
Yeah, no kidding. So you just find a place, rent it, and then the same when you
Mm-hmm.
come back. Just find a
Yeah.
place, rent it, and so
Yeah,
on
so
and
we're
so
always
forth.
looking for something fully furnished because
Yeah.
obviously we're not going to buy furniture and do all of those things. But yeah, we just rent wherever. And so it gives us the flexibility if we want to be somewhere for a month, then we stay for a month. If we want to go somewhere for 6 months, then we'll book it for 6 months. And we just have the ability to really be flexible with our
where we find ourselves.
So where are some of the places you've been, and where are some of the places on your horizon?
Oh, great question. And we've been to lots of places. So the first year that we went, like I said, we were fully in Nicaragua for the full 6 months. The year after that, we actually went to Asia. So we went to Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Indonesia, all over. We've been to Thailand. We've been to Honolulu, to Costa Rica, Ecuador, Colombia, Guatemala, all over Mexico. Cuba, Dominican Republic, you name it. We've been tons and tons of places,
Amazing.
which has been such a blessing. Out of everything that we've traveled so far, Cambodia, Colombia, I mean, we love Costa Rica, and Nicaragua has been a landing place for us for about 3 years now. Those would probably be some of the top favorites. Indonesia absolutely was incredible as well. Just sucks with time change and everything being on the other side of the world.
You're like coaching calls at 3 a.m.
Not the best, not the best. A little bit more difficult to navigate for sure. But for this next winter, if all goes according to plan, we're actually hoping to get to Spain and Portugal this winter.
Oh,
so.
Lovely. How nice. Okay, I'm going to do rapid fire favorite things. And I just really want to, you just say whatever comes top of mind, okay?
Okay.
Just whatever you feel, you just rock it. Okay. What is your favorite food or some of your favorite foods?
If dark chocolate counts as a favorite food, then that would be it. Absolutely. Other than that, I do love me a good sourdough. I love pasta. Lots of carbs, actually. Carbs tend to be my favorite.
I know, it's so funny. I'm like one of those people that like, I have to like, a dark chocolate is so much healthier for you and your body and whatnot, and the level of cacao and all that. But I'm always like, can I like, I don't know, like 65%? Like that's my max, maybe 70. It's
I'm like,
Lord.
I'm bitter. I like the bitter profiles, like 80, 85%. Oh yeah, those are my favorite. I said to my husband the other day, if I could just live off of green tea with honey and dark chocolate and like literally survive my life, then I would do that.
Nice. Love it. Where is, you kind of talked about this a little bit in your nomadic life, but if you could travel anywhere, like, hey, here's unlimited resources, where would you go next?
Oh, that's a great question. I would love to see more of Indonesia, honestly. It was where I got my dive ticket in Gili Trawangan Island, and so it holds a really special place in my heart. But again, just some flexibility things from life. So, I mean, if teleportation was a thing and we could just snap our fingers and be there and be back, that would probably be the top.
Yeah, love that. I know my husband and I did our very first scuba diving ever in our life in the Galapagos Islands. And so anytime we've ever done it since, we're like, wah, wah. Is this like just like a couple fish? Is that all there is? So you're like, where are the sharks and the penguins and the octopus and all the crazy cool stuff, you know? Yeah. So I hear you. When you have something iconic like that, it's like hard to, it's like, it is such a beautiful memory, you know?
Oh yeah. Like off of Nusa Penida Islands in Indonesia was where we actually got to dive with like the 20-foot manta rays.
So beautiful.
And that was just a phenomenal experience. It was right after I got my dive ticket. And so again, special place in my heart. Just
totally.
Yeah.
I don't know if you call them holidays in Canada, but like, what is your favorite holiday or like national break holiday thing?
Christmas for sure. My husband laughs at me every time because we travel for the winters now, so we are never home for Christmas.
Never have snowy Christmas?
Not no more, not for the last 4 years. And it kind of devastates me on some degree every single year because I always watch Christmas shows even when we're like in tropical countries and like try to make a Christmas dinner while we're away. But that is absolutely my favorite holiday. I've been obsessed with it since I was little. It's just something it kind of brings forward some of those more positive family memories, I guess you can say, where it's like I remember a time when things were a little bit more simple, and you can call it a little bit of like a little bit more naive in terms of thinking everything in the family dynamic was good, but it just makes me feel really connected, and that for sure is my favorite.
Love that. What is your favorite animal, or do you have a spirit animal that visits you or that you use as your totem or guide?
Black cats.
Oh, nice.
I say for sure, in a past life, I know I was burned at the stake as a witch. Very a core memory. So for me, black cats have always been a spirit animal. I had quite a few growing up, and they're drawn to me and I'm drawn to them no matter where I am in the world. It just is a very deep connection for me. And outside of that, elephants is another big one.
Oh,
So
I love that. So nice. I had a medium on, and she has a giant black panther that is like by her right side that guards her. So that's what made me, that's what I visualized when you said black cats. Like I saw cutesy little cats and then I saw this giant black panther next to you. So
I love
protecting
that.
you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite thing about what you do for a living?
My favorite thing about what I do is, and I'm getting head to toe goosebumps as I say this.
Good confirmation for you.
That moment when a client or a student or a retreat attendee of mine gets it, when everything clicks and she sees all of the things that she no longer has to carry around with her, who she actually is, she sees her worth, her value, and she just steps into loving herself a little bit more. That for me is by far my favorite thing about everything that I do. I say all the time, if I was to come into, millions of dollars to live the rest of my life, win the lottery, whatever it is, I would never stop doing what I'm doing because I care so much about the end result for what I'm delivering to the women that I work with. And I end every single one of my retreats, my events in person, in tears because I get hugs from every single person that attended. And to see their change in just a few days is a phenomenal experience and something that I'm so honored and grateful to be on this side of the fence for.
Yeah, and that's how you know you're on the right path because you're like, I would do it anyway.
Yeah.
I would do it for free because it's just what I'm meant to be doing. I love that. My last question, what brings you profound joy?
Oh, a couple of things for sure. For me, it's being in an environment of connection and being able to let those walls down, let those guards down, and just connect with whoever it is, whether it be my husband, a family member, really good friend, a circle of like-minded women. Just being able to let that guard down and connect a little bit more deeply brings me profound peace and joy. But also, stillness would probably be one of my biggest things. For a large part of my life, I fought for the noise. I wanted to stay busy, stay numb, stay distracted, and never go within. And I've worked so hard in the last 12 years to cultivate that sense of stillness, that sense of peace, that finding that is probably one of the most joyful things. And it can be anywhere. I can find it in my car. I can find it when I'm in the bathtub, when I'm in the middle of a country festival with my best friends. It doesn't matter what's going on externally to me. Finding that stillness, that presence in that moment is probably one of the biggest profound moments of peace.
That's amazing. And I've never heard anyone say that way. And it's so powerful. I fought for the noise to not, so that you didn't have to listen to the voice within. And I think that's so relatable and so powerful what you're doing to help people and help them process and heal and become their very best selves or step into their most vibrant self. And I just love that. So if somebody wants to work with you or they want to be in your programs or your retreats, can you just give us a quick overview of that? And we'll drop some links in the show notes for people to reach out to you or connect to you too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I actually just launched a brand new website last week, and I'm so excited about this because my entire life, my entire career, I have wanted to have a one-stop shop where you can find everything that I offer. And my website is now becoming that. We still have a few pages to go live yet within the next week, but it is the place where you can find everything. So if you head over there, you will find information about my one-to-one coaching packages. You will find information about my programs. Right now is actually open cart for my 20-week healing program, which is called Coming Home to You and is open for enrollment till April 25th, which opens up twice a year. So you can find information for that as well. I have some mini programs and other courses that you can also find information for on the website, information about the podcast, my freebie library. We offer a free new moon circle every month, and I offer regular breathwork classes as well, which you will also all find on the website. And the other big offering that I have is my retreat in Edmonton, Alberta in June, which is June 13th to 15th. And that's a 3-day weekend event where women come in. It's called She Glows. And we work on
Love it.
Really connecting with the self and shedding those limitations and layers and stepping into those shoes of your future self.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was so great to get to know you better and to just connect in this way. So thanks for coming on the pod.
Thank you so much for having me. I had the best time.
Awesome.